Well, good afternoon from Miami. Super excited to be here with my good friend here, Dave Balter. I'm Asheesh Birla. I'm the general manager of RippleNet, and I am super happy to have Dave here. Dave, you want to talk to us a little bit about you, but also talk to us a little bit about what Flipside, the company that you co-founded, talk to us a little bit about what Flipside does.
Well, thanks, Asheesh. I run a company called Flipside Crypto. We produce analytics for blockchains. We help extract their data, curate it, make it ready for analysts to do whatever they want with it. And then we run bounty programs to develop whatever the ecosystem needs. If community members need insights on protocols, if they need to understand new developments, we bounty that out and get those done in real time.
So I remember talking to you early on years ago, Dave, about how hard it was to get information out of protocols and, companies developing on top of protocols. And, even though blockchains are open and easily accessible, getting access to that data has been super complicated. It's getting a little bit better, but talk to us a little bit about how you realized your vision of making that data more accessible in working with protocols.
Yeah. So in 2017, we actually started as a fund, and our thesis was we wanted to understand where customers were doing things. I mean, a basic premise was if there are customers behaving well and retaining in an ecosystem, we should invest there. So we started studying that data, and over time, blockchains and protocols started showing up and saying, we don't understand that about ourselves. Is there some way to license that data from you so we can understand that? We think of it like for the Web 2 world, there's no Google Analytics or Mixpanel. And so if you're able to extract the data and make it available to analysts to produce that series of insights, you help everybody in the ecosystem start to grow and thrive.
Yeah. So on the topic of bounties, I mean, if you read the crypto news, not a month goes by or not even a week goes by when there's not another exploit. Wormhole, black hole, whatever it is. There's been tons of different exploits out there. How do you, in working with protocol companies, help to make blockchains safer and more secure?
Yeah. So let's give a little bit of context. Last month, March of 2022, we ran about 30,000 bounties across the blockchain partners that we have. So we're getting to some scale to enable sort of outcomes for those chains. And those bounties have two flavors. One sort of set of bounties is to help onboard individuals into an ecosystem, open wallets, take their first action so they can learn about the analytics. And then the second set is to solve major challenges as those blockchains are evolving. So in the case of something like Wormhole, Jump Capital uses our data for a variety of things. And as Wormhole has been growing and experiencing growing pains and challenges, they will show up and, this week they need to know information about how Wormhole is growing. But during an exploit, there's a whole bunch of information that, folks who are either market making or doing other things need to know in order to make decisions about how they might want to solve whatever the exploit is. And so think of that, any question. It could be, it could be everything from following where the wallets are going, but out to just how did this impact the protocol? What's happened to users of it, et cetera, so you can make informed decisions. So we helped a little bit with that as that was happening.
And do you think some of the problems that we're seeing with the exploits that are going on are a solvable problem that we're going to see, diminish over the next, 6 months to a year? Or do you think this problem is only going to get bigger because there's not enough sophistication and security in these systems?
Truthfully, I don't think exploits are going away in any short term. The pace of innovation in this space is moving, as we all know, very quickly. We're still in the stage of sort of how these, blockchains grow and evolve, and anywhere there's, compensation or money changing hands, people are going to come and try to, get in on that. So, what I love about what's happening in the space is every time one of these happens, it's like a learning journey. And so, people figure out sort of the new methodology, what could be exploited. They understand the data and then they go and fix that. And so I'd say instead of them not happening anymore, because they're going to happen, sort of the scope and scale of these are evolving into something where you have people who really understand when exploits are happening, how to go about solving them in near real time. And we're going to get better and better at that, like any industry that's evolving.
Yeah, I mean, I think one interesting thing to watch is so far the bigger exploits. Someone has come in and made folks whole that lost money in the exploit. You know, does that continue? And does someone get left without being made whole? I think that's where you're probably going to see a little bit more turmoil in the industry.
Yeah, it's definitely musical chairs right now. People have a lot of money, so taking the money to fill a gap. But eventually, that's not going to happen. If this industry is probably going to stand on its own, you need blockchains to be able to stand on their own and not be sort of backstopped by some other flow of funds that are maybe not really solving the core issue.
So, like in terms of like blockchain and crypto narratives right now, I feel like most folks are into one camp or the other. One camp being that, hey, there is going to be multiple blockchains, and bridging them is going to be a big business. Cosmos and other companies are trying to bridge these different blockchains. But Vitalik, the founder of Ethereum, has a different position in that like that's going to be really difficult and the blockchains will converge around an L1, L2 ecosystem. There'll be fewer of those. Like, where do you stand in terms of that debate? You think there are going to be a lot of different blockchains and bridges that make them all ubiquitous, or do you think it's going to be more Vitalik's vision? How do you think things will unfold?
Yeah. Well, disagreeing with Vitalik is probably not good for my cultural reputation, but I will, we
already tweeted that.
Yeah. Put that out there somewhere. I disagree with Vitalik. We do sit at the intersection of many of these blockchains. We work with many Cosmos chains, Terra, Osmosis, many Tendermint chains. And we're seeing the evolution of data across those and constituent communities move from chain to chain. We work with a number of layer twos, et cetera. So like, we think it is a multi-blockchain world in the end. It's not going to be 100 chains, but there will be a finite subset of chains where communities begin to adapt and are happy to move back and forth between with the right tools based on what the premise of each chain offers. So we're already seeing that multiple chains. Our customers are moving us from chain to chain all the time.
Yeah, I wasn't asked to opine on this question, but I will. Exactly. But one thing that did make sense. I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying. One thing that did make sense to me in terms of what Vitalik was saying as his reasoning on maybe it won't be hundreds of different blockchains is that security becomes really difficult when you're moving between one consensus mechanism and another, and having it all around, Ethereum and level twos around Ethereum or another chain just makes the security a little bit easier, which I think is sort of unfolding in real time.
Yeah.
A lot of these exploits have been between not level ones and level twos, but between two very different chains. And from a technical perspective, that seems like a really difficult thing to solve.
Yeah.
So
I would say, the next couple of years, does a Thor chain or an Axelar or Wormhole or whoever it is, does one of these get good enough to make that happen? It's definitely not perfected yet, but there's a lot of smart people trying, and maybe it gets solved.
Awesome. So one really thing that's been, in sort of the crypto sphere for the last couple of years, but I mean, you were early to this trend with something called DAOs, Decentralized Autonomous Organization. You launched a DAO called Metric DAO. Can you tell us a little bit about what your definition of a DAO is, and why did you, in terms of Flipside, work on launching a DAO called Metrics DAO?
Yeah. So the way Flipside works with its partners is in some forms what folks might consider Web 2. We receive large delegations. Terra has delegated about $100 million to us. We drive yield, and that yield turns into bounties that we use to create value for the chain. Some folks that doesn't look as crypto native, and so we actually, we call it, we summoned a DAO since it's not ours. We sort of took all of the IP of the business, this, 30,000 bounties a month. There's a whole much process there. And we donated it to this DAO, Metrics DAO. The genesis was folks from Rabbit Hole and 0x and Mirror and The Graph, et cetera. And that runs in a much more Web3 format. There's a tokenization process. Folks like Uniswap and Harmony and Olympus DAO use that format in order to get analytics for their organization. So think of it almost like Flipside's like a red hat. We produce IP. We work with large organizations with large scale delegations who want sort of control. And then there's Linux, which is a DAO organizations like open source, and protocols can use that and not feel like there's sort of some big parent company that's sitting over it, managing it.
Awesome. Well, I want to just say, Dave is been an entrepreneur for 20 years, super successful. I think we need more folks like Dave making crypto better with real entrepreneur experience. And I know I learned a lot from talking with Dave and getting advice from him. So thank you for joining us here at Ripple House. And, keep an eye on Dave and also Flipside Crypto, super interesting company to watch. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.